Χριστός Ανέστη, Christ is risen. Today we celebrate Orthodox Easter, which typically falls on a different day than Catholic Easter, and Easter has always been a very special time out of the year because it reminds me that Christ has indeed risen. He has been, he is, and always will be with us. This is actually how my channel got started. So 12 years ago, I started fasting for Great Lent and also started to think about permanent dietary changes in my life. And later on, it also inspired me to want to become a dietitian to help people eat a healthier diet and to learn about the health benefits of eating a plant-based diet. Because when you're an Orthodox Christian, you eat essentially a plant-based diet. And I never done the full 40 days before Holy Week. I've only done Holy Week when I was like really little, and even then it wasn't like a great fast, you know? So I started to learn this stuff a little later on in life and was really inspired too about the spiritual benefits that you get from fasting, but also the health benefits that you get from eating a plant-based diet. So I kind of combined both worlds. I was learning a lot about spirituality and also nutrition. It definitely took me down a new road that I never had seen before. I joke around sometimes saying that I'm still fasting from Easter 2012, but I didn't want to just keep that to myself. Even today, I love sharing these things with people in hopes of helping them in one way or another. And I have to say that the combination of being Christian and vegan is very interesting. It's probably not the best combination for making new friends, I'll tell you that. But I wanted to tell you guys something exciting. So I recently launched a second channel on YouTube called musicAeterna. It's a company that I started with my brother, and I'll have the link down below if you guys want to check that out and subscribe. Things are getting very, very weird around the world, and some of the stuff we cover on there, it's like, I never would have thought we would be talking about this stuff. They say that hard times create strong men create good times, and good times create weak men. And that cycle repeats, unfortunately. And where we probably are in that cycle is probably at the later end of it. We are certainly living through some hard times, and it's definitely about time that we start getting stronger as a society. We lived through years of lockdown. We hear about war every day. Human trafficking has turned into one of the largest crimes in the world. We recently experienced an eclipse that many are speculating was a warning. Bishop Marmari Emmanuel was attacked a few weeks ago. Dubai is completely underwater for trying to play God with cloud seeding. And Greece has gone from blue and white to completely orange from a wave of dust that has come across from Africa. Now I understand some of this stuff is very easily explainable, no doubt there, but it's not to say that things are not getting weird. Things are getting very, very weird. But in this video, I wanted to talk about a topic. It was something that I brought up in a different video about Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, which today, of course, it's called Istanbul in modern Turkey. Hagia Sophia was once a church, and today it is a mosque. This whole thing's going to sound a little strange. Even if you are probably Christian, it's going to be like, wow, where did this come from? So my biggest hero, if we're talking about just mere mortals here, it's this man right here, Saint Paisios the Athonite. He was a Greek Orthodox monk who lived on Mount Athos and passed away in 1994. And many people would go to him when they needed spiritual guidance, when they needed advice about things that were going on throughout their lives. He was the man to go to back in like the 80s and 90s in Greece. And he was the type of man that he knew you by name, and he knew about every question and every problem that you had before you even got to introduce yourself. St. Paisios also had many prophecies, all of which have come true. For example, he accurately predicted the fall of the Soviet Union, that Great Britain would leave the EU, that Greece would go bankrupt. He also stated that Hagia Sophia would turn from a museum into a mosque again at the time when a manufactured pandemic would circulate and people would be pressured to take its vaccine. Hagia Sophia turned from a museum into a mosque back in 2020. I wonder what kind of pandemic was circulating around that time. That is the type of man that we're talking about. Not just an amazing man that you would go up and talk to and feel like he's your friend immediately. He was also a man with very accurate, pinpoint foresight. All of these things have come true, and all of these things he talked about back in the 80s and 90s. And the prophecy that I want to talk to you guys about is not the one where Hagia Sophia turned from a museum back into a mosque. It is the one as follows. So, back in the early 90s, St. Paisios stated that the mayor at that time of Constantinople, or modern-day Istanbul, that mayor would later on become president. And when he's president, he's going to keep tensions between Greece. Very, very cool. Very good. There'll be no conflicts between Greece and Turkey. Because if you don't know, Greece and Turkey have had conflicts going back thousands of years. So that president of Turkey, Erdogan, was the one who was the mayor back during the time of St. Paisios. And he stated that when that president steps down or is overthrown, the next leader would attack Greece. And it's very interesting because we see in the news right now that Erdogan is certainly losing the support of his voters. Now, back in 2022, Turkey had closed the Straits, which is a very small passage that allows ships to move from the Black Sea into the Aegean and the Mediterranean. The saint stated that when the Turks close the Straits, World War III will come. Now, we see that Russia has great interest to move towards the Middle East. In order for the ships to move, they have to go through those straits. So the saint states that Russia will end up hitting Turkey. The Turks that are inside of Greece who are attacking Greece will pull away, go back to the homeland to defend Turkey. And indirectly, Russia will help Greece, and Russia will seize and give back to Greece Constantinople and other parts of Turkey that were once Greece. In other words, Hagia Sophia will turn back into a church 1,000 years later after it was first seized by the Ottoman Empire. And St. Paisios states that all of this will take place on the year where Orthodox Easter falls on the 5th of May. Again, if you guys want to learn more about this prophecy, check out my second channel, musicAeterna. I have the link in the description down below where you guys can learn way more information about all of this. But I'm not saying any of this stuff to scare you guys. In fact, I don't even know if any of this stuff will end up happening. But certainly it is interesting that St. Paisios, everything that he said and he's prophesied has come true. Only one thing is certain, and this is something that the saint did say. The only thing that will save us is our faith. When Christ died on that cross, he did it as a sacrifice to show us how much he loved us. We often say as Orthodox Christians that it is to die every single day. It is to deny ourselves and to carry our cross. And that is partly why we include fasting as a practice in our faith. And looking at the world right now and the way it is, we do not deny ourselves. We do not have love for our neighbor. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We look to take from our neighbor so that way we can benefit ourselves. And personally, I have a feeling that all of this stuff, or most of this stuff I should say, that is happening around the world is because of that. It's because we don't have love and we don't have humility. We as a society, we lack love. If love doesn't exist, then hatred will thrive. We must love each other. We must humble ourselves. Because at the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters. And as far as this stuff goes, all the worldly events, do not be afraid. It says it so many times throughout the Bible. Do not be afraid and have faith. I love you guys so much. Χριστός Ανέστη. Jesus Christos NIKA. May he always be with you. Random piece of advice. Have at least a week's worth of food at your home. If you can, have more. Whenever you go to the supermarket, buy a little extra just for the purpose of storing away. That way, whenever something happens, you have food, you can feed your family, and if you have enough, you can feed your neighbor too.